And so arrives another Formula One season, and hopefully unlike last year, this time the circus returns to some sense of normality. But it's not just Formula One that graces each Grand Prix weekend, there's also the feeder categories to think about as well, as these are the places where the next Formula One superstars are born. So, in this video, we will be taking a look at all of the single-seater series that will join the paddock over the course of the next 10 months. Before we begin, I need to get one thing out of the way. A lot of the information in this video is provisional. Feeder categories have always been subject to last-minute changes, and given current world events, even Formula One can be subject to massive mid-season changes as well. So this video will be accurate upon the date of release, and we'll hope that it stays that way for the majority of the season. So without further preamble, let's get started. Here's the 2021 Formula One Grand Prix calendar, featuring 23 rounds across at least 22 different countries. The race in Saudi Arabia is still subject to homologation, but as a baseline, we know what should be happening for the majority of the year. To display what support categories each event will host, we'll use the tried and trusted FIA ladder system, which splits racing series between Formula 2, Formula 3, Regional Formula, and Formula 4, and then any category that doesn't quite fit the mold will slot in where it theoretically lines up. Lastly, I won't be including any non-open wheel categories such as the Porsche Super Cup or any other kinds of GT racing, just open wheel championships. So let's start with the premier feeder category for Formula 1, Formula 2. Formula 2 kicks off at the very first round in Bahrain, and with the series moving to a 3-race per round format, fans will now have more opportunities to see the world's top juniors take part in a Grand Prix weekend. There's then a couple round gap before the second round at Monaco, with the third round at the next event in Azerbaijan, a double street race bonanza for Formula 2 fans. Roughly a month later, Formula 2 returns at the British Grand Prix. Then there's a further month's wait before the next round at the Italian round held in Monza. Luckily, the next round is the following F1 event as well, with the third street race of the year at the Russian Grand Prix. Unfortunately, Formula 2 goes on a bit of a break at this point, because the next round isn't until the penultimate F1 round in Saudi Arabia, but at least the series will then take part in the final round of the season as well in Abu Dhabi. And that's it for Formula 2, a dramatically different calendar to previous years with fewer and more spread out rounds, but the reason for that will become clear as we move to Formula 3. Like Formula 2, Formula 3 will also be moving to a 3-race weekend. Because of this, Formula 1 organisers have made sure to split the two up to avoid any timetable constraints. So let's see where Formula 3 will go this year. The series doesn't actually start until nearly 2 months after the season has begun, with the first race set to take part at the Spanish Grand Prix. And while that might seem weird to those new to Formula 3, Barcelona has always been the traditional starting event for the series, if you don't count 2020 of course. Then there's a nearly 2-month break before round 2 in France, but at least round 3 is the next event held in Austria. Unfortunately, the breaks continue on as there's another month-long break before the next round held in Hungary, followed by another month-long break before the round in Belgium, though this time it's because of the Formula 1 summer break, so technically the 2 rounds are actually held one after the other. Luckily for us, the very next round in the Netherlands is also the next for Formula 3, and the penultimate round of the season as well. Though the final round isn't for roughly 2 months after that, it's actually going to be held in the United States, marking the series' first visit to the Americas. And that wraps up Formula 3. If you look at both of these categories together, you can visually see the split that has occurred. While in the past, the two series had pretty much always raced together, it has meant that technically some drivers can now do both series if they wanted. But there's still some gaps to fill in, so let's move on. Now we'll be talking about the often forgotten and misunderstood part of the racing ladder, the regional series. Once known as Regional Formula 3, these series are the bridging gap between Formula 4 and Formula 3, and as the name would suggest, have different series dedicated to different regions around the world. As such, these championships don't really follow the Formula 1 circus, except for one key example for this year alone, the W Series. The all-female championship will have all of its rounds at every Grand Prix weekend, starting in France, then Austria, the United Kingdom, Hungary, Belgium, and the Netherlands, making it a constant event during the middle of the year. There will then be a 2-month break before the final 2 events take place one after the other, with the series taking its first foray out of Europe to contest both the United States and Mexican Grand Prix. As for other regional championships, as of the writing of this video, there is only one other that will be part of the support paddock at a Grand Prix weekend, known as the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. Among the other championships it will support throughout the year, 3 of the rounds, including the first Italian race at Imola, as well as the back-to-back events in Spain and Monaco, will feature the championship. And now here's an interesting little addition to wrap things up. While not classed as a regional series or even part of the FIA's own ladder, there is one more championship on par with the others in this category that will be attending a Formula 1 event. In early March it was announced that the Euroformula Open Championship will move their opening round a week earlier to take part in the Portuguese Grand Prix, though that will be the only Formula 1 event that the series will take part in. Finally, we have the last step of the ladder, Formula 4. As Formula 4 championships are generally held nationally, meaning that the series tends to take part in just one country, you would think that the local Formula 4 championship, taking part in the local Formula 1 race, would be common practice. However, it happens a lot less often than you think, and while there are races held here and there, they tend to stick to racing away from Formula 1. At the time of recording, only one championship is confirmed to take part in its local Formula 1 Grand Prix, and that's the NACAM series based in Mexico, which will take part in, well, you've probably guessed it, the Mexico City Grand Prix. That said, the French F4 series is also in talks with the local organisers as well to take part in the French Grand Prix, and there's always a chance that more Formula 4 championships might end up on the calendar later, but for now, these are the only 2 we know of. And that's it for all the feeder categories that will support Formula 1 this year. As mentioned in the intro, sports cars and GT racing also frequently occur during a Grand Prix weekend, but since we're looking at just the feeder categories, I stuck to those on the FIA's ladder. With how hashed together last season's calendar was, let's hope that with changing environments and a better understanding of what's going on in the world, we can get back to the kinds of racing we know and love. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, then let me know and subscribe for more videos like this. My name's Jacob, and as always, until next time, goodbye.